welcome to the Mythic Tavern, and today I wanted to talk about how the reveal for World of Warcraft Midnight was actually kind of a little bit disappointing. And I don't want to say, I'm not saying that the expansion is actually bad. I think the expansion is actually going to be really good and probably one of the best. But what I mean by this is the fact that the way it was presented and the way the information was scattered was very, very poorly done. Like, it was just terrible, man. If you guys remember something like the War Within presentation or, the Dragonflight stream that they've done, a couple of years back, those were really good presentations. Everything was on point, from the beginning to the end on day one. That, unfortunately, was not the case for Gamescom's WoW Midnight reveal. And I think a lot of it has to do with the way it was set up, and Blizzard wasn't really at their hometown in California or whatever, Irvine, and they can't really play by their own rules because they gotta pay money to someone else to have the marketing and things like that. For the opening night live for Gamescom, Blizzard paid a certain amount of money to have the cinematic up there and announce the game, or the expansion, I should say. So at that point, you're already not playing by your rules because you cannot immediately go into the presentation of the expansion, which is unfortunate. And you could actually tell that the developers and the presenters were really upset about this. When Holly came up on stage, you could tell immediately she wasn't really as excited. She had limited enough time to say the things that they needed to say and, do the presentation for the cinematic. And, believe it or not, there was actually a chart somewhere on Reddit or somewhere on the internet that I saw where they show how much money you have to pay to show an advertisement or a product at opening night live, and they're very expensive. So, the longer your trailer is running, the more money you're gonna pay. Now, I'm not saying, this doesn't have money, that's not the case. My point is that there's a limited amount of time that you could be on there because they have to fit everybody else. And of course, there's also the cost that you have to consider. But when Blizzard is able to do it at their own show, they can do it at their own pace, with their own budget, with their own schedule, things like that, and their own people. Yeah, unfortunately, that was not the case with Gamescom. Now, they showed the trailer, which was, pretty good, in my opinion. I like the cinematic. There's a few things that I might have not liked about it. But overall, I thought it was pretty fun. I still got goosebumps, and I liked the music. I liked the voice acting. And I think the overall presentation was pretty good. But normally, right after that, you're supposed to go and start talking about the game and basically describing what the expansion is all about. And then normally you show the feature trailer. And the feature trailer wasn't even shown right after the cinematic, so people were like, okay, that's cool, the cinematic is here, but where the fuck is the game, or the expansion and the features and things like that, and the information? Well, that was posted later, and people were like, okay, well, here it is, I guess. So the trailer comes up, the gameplay trailer, they show off player housing a little bit, they show off the Hannah Rear, they show off, Demon Hunter spec, all that good stuff, the pre-system, the new zones. But all of a sudden, we don't see anything about level 90, we do not see anything about raids or dungeons, or PvP, or any of those things for that matter, and people were like, wait, are we gonna be level 80 again? There's no level 90? Or where are the new dungeons and raids? Now, obviously, it's one of those obvious things that, yes, there will be those things. You can't have an expansion without a level cap upgrade or a, new dungeons and raids. That wouldn't make any sense. But of course, when you're presenting a new product and you don't put that into your advertisement, people are gonna think otherwise. Even though it might be obvious that there is, new raids and new level cap. But regardless of that, you still have to show that. Even as obvious as it might seem, this is your chance to promote the product, and you did not do that. You didn't promote it fully to the extent that you should have, which gave people a really bad impression that this expansion just only has player housing, the new spec, a new race, and new zones, and that's it. And the praise system. Like, where the fuck is everything else? It didn't really build up the hype for people. Then, over the next few days, more information started coming in from Wowhead, from interviews, from Twitter, and random YouTube Shorts postings. And there's all of a sudden like, oh, there's a new transmog system. Oh, we're getting a stat level item squish. Oh, here are the 3 raids and 8 new dungeons and their delves. Where was this in the trailer? It wasn't there. And it's terrible. That's not how you show off your product, which is really sad because Blizzard has been doing this for years. So I don't know if it was just a botched marketing job, if it has something to do with Gamescom or whatever. But I much prefer Blizzard being at their hometown in the USA, doing things at their own pace, and I think most people do as well. I want to say thank you to all the people that got the chance to interview them. You guys know who they are. Mr. GM, you got, couple of random streamers. All those people, obviously, Taliesin and Evelyn, or I'm sorry if I got that butchered incorrectly. I think it's Taliesin and Evitil or something like that, but you guys know what I mean. So, you know, all those folks there, thank you guys for providing all that information, because otherwise this expansion reveal would have been even worse. You know, thanks to all the interviewers. There's actually a lot of really cool details that a lot of people missed out on, and you know, they didn't even know about. And yeah, this was probably the worst reveal I've ever seen, man. But the expansion itself sounds really good to me. I'm pretty excited. I just wish it had a better impression on people from the very get-go, but unfortunately that was not the case. Thankfully, next year is BlizzCon, which I'm going to be going to, so I'm very excited for that. I was at last year's BlizzCon, which was in 2023. That was like 2 years ago, and that was fucking awesome. You know, I met a lot of cool folks, and the energy was much better. Another thing I wanted to mention is if you watched any of the developer panels that they did over the course of the next few days, a lot of the developers sounded really tired and not very excited. Do they not care for the expansion? Are they not interested in it? Why they're so like soulless? Well, I think what it is that if you think about it, it's a very long flight from, you know, California to Germany, and you're probably going to be tired. And then there's the jet lag. You have to adjust to the schedule, and it's a very tight schedule. You also need some rest, and you still are fucking around with the time zones, or your body is anyway. So you're going to be pretty drained out. And I remember one of the first panels that I watched. First of all, it was unwatchable. You had terrible audio. It was also uploaded completely incorrectly, and it wasn't the full thing. There was a frozen frame at the end, so we didn't even get to see the whole panel. And yeah, and on top of that, Maria, who was one of the speakers, was just not very into it. And it really sucks because I feel bad for her. And I'm someone who has met Maria in the past, actually, at BlizzCon in 2023, and I can assure you guys, she's very passionate about what she does. She loves her job, and she's very good at answering questions. But unfortunately, at the panel, she didn't look very excited. You could tell she was very exhausted, and she was just, you know, mentally drained. And I can't really get upset at her about that. Now, first of all, she's a little bit of an older person than, you know, someone like Ian. You know, for younger people, it's easier to keep up with the energy, so you guys got to be mindful of that. You know, older people are going to have a harder time adjusting to, you know, jet lags and things like that. So you just gotta understand it and respect that. I can assure you that she does care about the game, and she wasn't trying to be like done with it or anything like that, because you could tell she was just very tired when she was speaking. You could tell by the look on her face, and it was unfortunate because I feel like the developers didn't really get to talk about the expansion how they wanted to because of the circumstances. Unfortunately, it puts the bad impression on the development team. It's also putting a bad impression on the product itself. But it is what it is, and you know, it happened, and that's it. And you have to accept it and go with the flow. I still think it's going to be a really good expansion. I'm very excited for it. But I hope that this video, or, you know, whatever other video you watch in regards to this specific topic, that it doesn't sway you from not wanting to try out the expansion or not buy it or whatever. I still think you should give it a chance. I'm actually really excited for it. I think it's going to be better than War Within, in my opinion. Even though I did enjoy War Within, I thought that was a pretty decent expansion. But thematically speaking, I like Midnight a lot more. I like the systems in it a lot more. I think one of my best favorite systems from War Within is probably Warbands, just because it's such a massive improvement for alts and, you know, your overall account and things like that. Yeah, the quality of life changes were massive with Warbands, and I really like that kind of stuff. And there's a lot more of that coming in Midnight as well. Anyways, I think, like I said, the expansion is going to be really good. But unfortunately, the reveal of the product, the marketing of the product was very bad. But next year, there's BlizzCon. We're probably going to see something about The Last Titan, or something a little bit about it. I would assume at that point, back in September, which is about a year from now. It's going to be on September 6th, I believe. So a week and a year from now, about that time. And yeah, I'm looking forward to being there, and I'm sure Blizzard is going to do a much better job at their hometown in Irvine, California for actual BlizzCon event. It's going to be a good time, and I'm excited for it. And you should be as well, and hopefully I'll see you there. But anyway, that is it for my video. If you enjoyed this types of content, make sure you hit like and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts on this presentation in the comments. Peace out, and have a good one.